So I don't know. I just felt like if I, because I'm obsessed with all animals, but I was like, if I want to be around them all the time, then I'm going to lean into invertebrates. So reptiles and insects are kind of my jam, but don't get me wrong, I love horses and dogs.
Of course.
Whales and polar bears and stuff. I'm just giving this lady a really hard time. Grizzly bears and kodak bears and sloth bears and blue whales and sharks and bats.
So go back to your acting though. Okay, so once you realize that this is a pathway that you can follow, right? There's many different ways for you to do it. You can do voices, you can do theater, you can do TV, movies. What drove you to your first audition? Was it just opportunity, or did you know?
The reason why I became an actor was Star Wars, but obviously I didn't think, wow, I'm gonna be an actor and immediately get involved in like space operas and stuff like that. I loved Star Wars. I still continue to love Star Wars, and then when I realized, there's a couple of Star Wars films here. When I realized that Han Solo was also Indiana Jones, because I couldn't figure that out, and I asked my dad. When I was like 7 or 8, I was like, how come he can like wear a head and a whip, and then he's a different person, and then he has a blaster and he's in space? And my dad's like, well, he's an actor, he wears different clothes and he's in different films. And I was like, oh, like that light bulb thing went on. So then I thought, okay, I'd like to do that, and I was probably, I don't know, 7, 8, something like that. And then it got serious at school. I kind of dug it, and my teachers told my parents that I like really dug it and wanted to do it more, and was pretty adamant about doing more and more plays. And then played football a lot as a kid, and I got injured one summer, so I couldn't play football. And then I joined 2 youth theatres, and again, I was kind of cocky when I was younger, and I like forced them to like do this play and give me this part, which I would never do nowadays. You know what I mean? It's like,
so you wouldn't have to now.
Yeah, I know, but it's a pretty heavy swing as like a 12-year-old to be like, you should do this play and I should play this part, but that's what I did. Kind of gnarly things about it. And then like, this is pre-internet, so this is kind of aging me, but I did this play at Manchester Youth Theatre, which is like the second biggest youth theatre in the country outside of National Youth Theatre. And I went to my local library, and I had all of the agents in the north of England's address printed out. I just had it printed out on like a little thing. And then I borrowed a typewriter from my school, and I wrote, this letter out like 20 or 30 times. Dear sir or madam, my name is Dominic. I am doing this play on these dates. Please come and see me. Ching! And I don't know, like, I think like 3 of them came. Yeah, which is not a lot out of like 20 or 30. And then 2 of them offered to represent me, and I went with 1. And then I had 1 audition for a soap opera in England called Emmerdale Farm, which I didn't get, and I was like devastated that I didn't get it, And then second audition I got, and then, that was it. I started working for the BBC, worked for the BBC for like 4 years, and, haven't really stopped working since then, which has been...
Okay, come on now. When you're 12 and you're telling people that you should do this play and you have that outcome, I think you were right. I don't think that you were wrong at all. Am I wrong, people? I'm wrong. Now, there's a sincere amount of dedication to show you that. And that's not even just the craft work, that's actual behind-the-scenes ingenuity, really. So...
Yeah, I also got really lucky. I think you're really lucky if you know what you want to do at a young age, because then you make all those mistakes when you're a kid,
right,
and you figure out what you should or shouldn't be doing as a kid. So by the time you get to 16, 17, 18, when things are starting to get serious, you've been in the trenches for 4 or 5 years figuring it out. I was making the big mistakes that you make as an actor when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, on stage at my school, not speaking with clarity, forgetting my lines, jumping into other people's work, doing their performance instead of mine, trying to overshadow people, making all those terrible mistakes that you make as an actor. So that by the time I was actually working on the TV when I was 18, there was a little bit of honing of what I should or shouldn't be doing, which I needed, because I then ended up working with a fantastic actress called Patricia Routledge in a TV show called Hetty Wainwright Investigates. Very catchy title for a TV show. And she was amazing and a great teacher, but she was extremely strict like a matron. Don't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I think she would have done it like 20 times more if I hadn't have started to work out some of those things that I should be doing. Exactly.
See? Dead on.
I agree.
I love that. Now, moving into international film, was that a different process from being a little bit more homegrown? Did acts of Hollywood did it change anything for you, or were you like, oh no, this is happening?
No, not really. It's all kind of the same. I all approach it the same. I mean, it might be a little bit more exciting, if you go from doing like a BBC One show, which was extremely exciting, to then doing some English films, right? But then, starting to do a film where you think, oh, this is going to get seen in the United States, this is going to get seen in whatever, Australia or Rio de Janeiro or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of exciting, but I don't approach my work any differently. It's still learn your lines, hit your marks, do your research, know what you're doing, go to bed early, eat right, go to the gym. You have to take care of yourself. It's long hours, an average good day when you're working on every scene, I'm usually getting picked up somewhere around about 5:30, usually getting home around about 7:30, you eat your dinner, I pull my dial up for the next day, make sure I know what I'm doing, fall asleep by 9:30 or 10, and then you just repeat, and then at the weekend, you just like, go to the gym, make sure you're eating well, make sure that you're not getting sick. Because the other thing is, it doesn't matter if you get sick. That was one of the cruel things that I learned when I was young. If you're sick, they're like, okay, we're still picking up at 5:30. We'll give you hot lemon and honey and ginger in between takes, and you can lie down, but you still have to know your lines, and you still have to act like you're not sick. So you can't make out talking like that and see it's not your nose. You have to figure out a way to not seem like you have a sinus infection. So you have to be well most of the time.
What a boot camp.
It's a weird one.
No, that's brilliant. Okay, so in terms of some of the many wonderful, talents that you've co-starred with, do you have any, particular favorites that you really enjoyed the experience? We just talked about someone who was very strict, but did you have others that you were just like, this is fun and I love it?
Well, I mean, Billy's the best. Billy's definitely the best. I mean, just in terms of I have a couple of people in my life who can read my mind and I can read theirs. That kind of they can finish my sentences. We're just vibing on each other. We know what's going on. It's all love. There's all good intentions. But sometimes you have to kind of explain. Oh, I meant this with the joke. Or it's going in this direction. I never have to do that really. He just knows. He just gets it. He's a great actor. He's a great human. I was a big fan. My favorite film ever is Apocalypse Now, so I got a chance to work with Martin Sheen when I was younger, which was extraordinary. And we were able to talk about that film, and Max von Sydow was in that film, who's one of the great European actors. Hugh Jackman was really fun to work with and really amazing to watch him working at close distance because he was obviously the lead in Wolverine, and he had a crazy responsibility on that film because he was also one of the producers and he was hosting the Oscars at the time. So he was rehearsing. So we were in Sydney. We would finish on a Friday. He would jump on a plane, fly to LA, rehearse on Saturday, Sunday, then fly Sunday night back to set, then come to set Monday morning. And he was exhausted, and he was always in a great mood, and he was always chipper, and he looked like a dreamboat.
That movie too.
Wow, come on! I'm stood next to Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, and everyone looks like an onion. Extraordinary physical specimens. I mean, Ryan Reynolds, he's a beast, and next to Hugh Jackman, he looked small, and he genuinely did. And Hugh Jackman's doing press-ups before the take in a vest type thing, and he'd stand up and they'd put the clapboard on, and I'd be stood next to him, and I'd look over and he had these veins just pumping out of his shoulders. I was I've never seen that type of muscle on a human foot. I've seen a shoulder muscle like a deltoid, but I've not seen it split in 3 parts. He's just an absolute weapon, So he was an inspiration. Those are standout people. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Lord of the Rings is amazing, and that cast is incredible. And obviously, Elijah and Sean and Billy are all my brothers, and we spend a lot of time with each other, and they're beautiful people. So crazy alchemy with Billy and I. Of course, there's something going on. I don't know what it is.
Who knew? It's in the shot. It's in the shot. Okay, obviously, we should talk about Lord of the Rings just a little bit. That was a huge undertaking. When it came out, it was monumental, changed the game. did you guys have any idea of what scale this was going to be when you got hired on?
Yeah, I think we knew a little bit about the scale. I mean, I landed with John Rhys Davies. We were on the same flight, and you know, I thought that we were going to get maybe 2 days or so to get over this crazy, crushing jet lag, which I'd never had to that degree before. You know, Manchester to London is an hour, London to LA is 12 hours, LA to Auckland is 12 hours, and then Auckland to Wellington is an hour. So you come off that flight, you're like, what the hell?
You literally lost like 3 days.
Yeah, it's hectic. And we went to the hotel, and then we got a phone call saying we were going to pick you up in an hour, and I was tripping, you know, just like spaced down. And we went and we saw Pete, and Pete was like, "Do you want to see Bag End?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I want to see Bag End. I mean, you know, I know these books, I know this mythology." So we went and saw Bag End, complete with like scarves on coat hangers and half-written maps and pipes and all this kind of stuff. And it was extraordinary and brilliant, and the attention to detail was overwhelming. And then Pete said, "Do you want to see Gandalf's Bag End?" And I was like, okay. I didn't know what that meant, you know. I was kind of following around the corner, and now we see an absolutely perfect version of Bag End, complete with the scarves and the maps and the pipes and the rugs on the floor, but everything's smaller so that Ian can come in and seem so much bigger. And John Rhys Davies and Pete kind of walking through this thing, and John said, and I was just like, I was just speechless, I was just stunned, you know, just like, wow, I've never seen one of these sets like this, let alone 2 sets that are identical. And I think at that point I was like, oh, this is the biggest thing that I've ever worked on, and will always be the biggest thing that I think any of us will ever work on. It became this pop culture, yeah, but I mean, it's like, you know, they talk about catching lightning in a bottle type thing with those movies. It caught fire in a way that, of course it's a great film, objectively they're great films, but catching fire like that, and you know, like things like, you know, Mordor and the Ring and Gollum and My Precious kind of moving into pop culture, that was really interesting, you know.
Oh, that's awesome, that's awesome. I love that you said that you were very familiar with the content. Like how much of a super Tolkien reader were you? Like, super immersed, like you read The Hobbit, everything, or you knew Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, I mean, my dad, obviously, child of the 60s in England growing up, so Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, a big deal. And we lived in Germany when I was a kid, and we would come back probably twice a year, drive from Germany to the kind of port, the shipping port, and then take a boat over to the south of England, and then drive up to the north of England. So that's like a 12-hour drive type thing. And we would listen to The Hobbit storybook tapes on the way there to keep us quiet. And then as we got a little bit older, we would listen to the beautiful Ian Holmes version of the BBC version of The Lord of the Rings, which is, again, extraordinary. Yeah, amazing. And I remember saying to my dad when I was a kid, when I was like 11, 12, 13, should I read these books? And my dad was like, well, you absolutely should read these books.
Of course.
You might not be ready yet. And I think my dad didn't want me to start and then get dissuaded. He wanted me to read it and go all the way through with it. And, you know, as you guys all know, Lord of the Rings is like this, you know, it's over 1,000 pages, it's intimidating. So when I did read it, I just couldn't believe how well it was written, and, you know, the work of a true master. And I don't think, well, I certainly have never felt so immersed in a world before. Do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't believe how well Tolkien was able to capture the Shire, or capture Rivendell, or Lothlorien, or Edoras, or any of these places, and the characters were great. And, you know, in a slightly bittersweet way of thinking about it now, Mary's so much cooler in the books, you know. That's true, man. Mary's the guy who tells Gandalf the code to open the door in Moria. It's not Frodo. It's Frodo in the films. They do me dirty. Mary is the true warrior hobbit out of the 4 of them. You know, obviously Pippin, you know, does a lot through the war, but he's not on the battlefield stabbing the Lich King and, you know, almost burning his arm off and permanently damaging his arm. And, you know, Mary has a lot to do, and he's just a little bit more prominent in the books. So I do hold those books in high regard, and, you know, I like Mary. He's kind of cool.
We like that. You like him.
Yeah.
Now, I know that there's some fans here that want to ask some questions, and I know we've got at least one microphone over there, and there's one on this side. So I want to open that up for everybody, if that's cool with you.
Yo, let's do it.
Awesome. We'll start on this side. Hello, friend.
Oh,
Mic's not on.
well, why don't we go here and
Yeah,
we
we'll
can
see.
fix this
Sign
one
on.
by the time we get back. Try it.
Hello?
Hey,
Yay!
We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you.
Yes, hello, Dom. Thank you again for joining us in Denver. We love you very much here. So first of all, absolutely love you as Charlie in Lost. I was curious if you could tell us about a time when you and the other hobbits and other Lord of the Rings characters created another game. I know that there was a Tig a Tag that you guys had mentioned in the commentary. If you could elaborate on that, and if there's any other game that stands out more predominantly in your mind. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately that was just another way that I was just having fun with Elijah. You know, Elijah's a beautiful guy. One of the more beautiful things about Elijah is he just takes you on your word, you know, like that's his thing. So it just happened out of nowhere. You were always improvising as an actor, you know, and we were on stage, Billy and I, we all were waiting for a shot to happen. And Elijah came over and I just was like messing with Billy and I was like, Tig, you're on. And Billy was like, Tig, you're on. And Elijah was like, what are we doing? And I said, oh, we're playing Tig. And Elijah was like, okay, Tig. And I was like, no. You can't take it, you have to take it, tag it. He's like, how do I do the tag? I'm like, well, you have to wait until you can tag, and then you have to take that person back, and it's a double tag. It just went on, and Elijah's like, you almost see like a notebook out, and so then it became this elaborate thing, and then like Billy said, a couple of weeks later, he came over and he was like, how come we don't play Tig anymore? Because we just made up the game. And then, yeah, I'm big on making up games. I made up a game called Cup, which is basically just keeping a paper cup in the air. Very sophisticated game. I used to play that with Bernard Hill quite a lot. And then there's another game that I came up with called Nudge. I'm big on games, you know, it's kind of my thing. I love playing games. I'm more than a little competitive. It keeps me in a place of play, literally, if I'm doing games, you know. So that's how that came about. And yeah, I mean, Elijah now still, as my friends, would be like, let's play Tig. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next time he does it, you're like, no, wrong cup now. He's like, wait, what the hell is that?
Okay, now it's working.
Yeah.
All right, hey again, Dom.
What's up?
My question is, which universe do you prefer to be in, the Lord of the Rings universe or the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, I mean, they're both pretty beautiful. The difference for me is probably like, you know, obviously Star Wars is the reason I became an actor, but my experience on Star Wars, even though it was special, and, you know, it's JJ, he's a friend of mine, and got a chance to hang out with Chewie and R2 and C-3PO and stuff. My experience on Star Wars was probably like 12 weeks, you know, like, all in all. And that was like going off and having breaks and coming back and stuff. So it was extraordinary, and I loved it. But it's hard to compare that with, you know, the principal photography of almost 2 years and then going back every year for months at a time. So, of course, both those films are super important in my life, but the immersion of Lord of the Rings is just a little bit more significant.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Great question. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello again, Dom.
Hello.
So love you, Lord of the Rings, but I gotta say one of my favorite characters for sure is Charlie Lost. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, going from, you know, film to TV and the development really through that whole series. I mean, from being a junkie to Not Penny's Boat. That's
Right.
huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's got emotional right here.
Yeah, it was a wild ride, you know. I met JJ, it was like 3 days before the Oscars when Return of the King kind of did that clean sweep thing. And yeah, I met JJ. And if you look at my nails when I'm at the Oscars, I had got my nail beds painted black because I thought it looked kind of rad. I called it like a reverse French nail polish. And when I met JJ like 2 days before the Oscars and he saw my nails and he was like, keep those, we'll use those in Lost. And we actually do use those in Lost. And that was just me, just for the Oscars. I was like, oh, I want to get something cool going on with my nails. So life was imitating art very much. At the time, I was probably playing my life pretty fast and loose, certainly faster and looser. So I was probably a little bit more kind of, you know, staying up late and, you know, being probably a little bit more of a rock star of sorts. So they probably saw that a little bit. When I first met JJ for The Lost, there was no Charlie. You know, they wanted me initially to read for Sawyer, because all the men were reading for Sawyer. Wow. Yeah, it's like a generic thing. We have a male role and a female role, and you know, when I finished meeting JJ, I was like, do you want me to read this scene? And JJ's like, nah, there's no way that we're going to have you play Sawyer, we're going to play a different role. And I was like, okay. And I came back 2 weeks later, and they created Charlie. He was my age, he looked like me, he acted like me. And when we did the screen test, normally a screen test is 2 actors, so there was 2 Jacks, 2 Kates. Colby Smulders was testing for. Oh, yes, got their trip for it. 2 Boons, 2 Hurleys, 2 Sawyers. So 1 Charlie, it was me. And I saw JJ walking down the corridor, and I was like, there's only 1 Charlie? And he went, yeah man, don't fuck it up. No pressure. Yeah, and then we talked about Oasis, we talked about the Stone Roses, we talked about The Verve, we talked about The Cure a little bit, we talked about these type of bands that are a little kind of maudlin and maybe a little bit kind of like swaggery cool, and maybe they've had their problems with substances and stuff like that. And then we, you know, between JJ and David and the writers and stuff, they started to fashion this idea of like, what if this guy had the briefest glimpse of fame? You know, and how frustrating that must be to have had a hit, to have a hit single, to be on the cusp of a career, and it's been snatched away from you. He's a frustrated artist. So we did that, and you know, obviously his struggles with drugs and stuff are well known in the show. I was essentially trying to play him as a bad good guy. So I knew that he was good, but I was constantly trying to push the bad. Anytime you see Charlie in a hood, anytime you see him with his hood up, that's bad Charlie. He's up to some shenanigans, you know. Usually heroin or something dodgy with, you know, the rest of the crew. And then as we got into season 3, I kind of expressed a few kind of concerns about just being the guy holding the baby. Claire's off having adventures. Jack and Sawyer and Locke and Kate and Hurley are all off having adventures, and I'm just on the beach holding the baby, which is beautiful. I love kids, don't get me wrong. But I was like, yeah, come on, this was supposed to be like Charlie had some stories too. So David then said to me, I think we found a way to write a great storyline for you, but it means that you're going to leave at the end of season 3. And I was like, great, this is going to be my best crack of the whip that I'm going to get, because you know, other members of the cast, they might kill 4 of them in 1 episode or something like that. So I was like, okay, let's do it, I'll take it. They started to preempt this, you know, you're going to die, Charlie. And it kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and then, you know, we filmed the sequence for the end. I love Walter. Walter's always been like really kind and nice to me. You know, I scuba dive, I surf, all this kind of stuff. So I felt very nurtured and took care of in the water, which allowed me to be vulnerable and do that scene. And it's consistently talked about as being, you know, one of the saddest deaths in TV, and I'm super proud of it. And I think it was a great show.
It broke our hearts.
Thanks, Steve.
Hello, friend. How's it going?
Hello! So clearly you have a lot of connection to the characters you play. Most of us are here for Lord of the Rings, so I'm going to ask a Mary-themed question. What's a moment you felt yourself connects most with Mary? Like you're like, that's my boy. This is me, I'm playing Mary, this is Mary.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously in the Fellowship, and I think one of the abiding kind of positive aspects of Mary's personality is he's really there for his guys, you know. His guys, obviously, have been Frodo and Sam. They're his cousins, they're his family, they're his bros. He's there for them. He wants them to have a good time, he wants them to be taken care of. Clearly, he wants them to be safe. When it gets to a point where things are actually physically dangerous for them, he is concerning for Mary. But ultimately, I think Mary kind of looks around and he's like, these guys have, you know, a flag and a veil and some nice food to eat, and everyone's happy and smiling. I'm in my element, and there's a few moments in Fellowship, you know, before it gets really hectic, where you can just see Mary being like, great, these guys are okay, you know, we're safe, we're at the Prancing Pony, we got here, we're out of the rain, it's warm, you know, we're having a pint, and that's a great thing. And I think, again, because I have a tattoo that says life imitates art, you know, which I believe it does. I felt the same way on set, you know, I just felt that kind of protective thing about specifically Elijah, Sean, and Billy. We were together a lot, certainly for the first film. Elijah was exhausted, he had a lot to do, there was a lot of pressure. Sean did not physically feel great. He had to be a lot bigger than he was comfortable with. And, Billy and I were reading each other's minds at that point. So I just kind of felt like, as long as everyone's having a good day, I'll look around and be like, are you good? Are you good? Are you good? Okay, we're good. And that kind of felt like a crossover between Dom and Mary. So that's what it kind of locked with me.
That's awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
So, another Mary-themed question. Just sort of going off you saying Mary is cooler in the books, and let me also say, like justice for Fatty Bolter, whoever seen. But are there any specific scenes from the books that you would have wanted to act out as Mary but didn't get the chance to?
Yeah, there's a few sequences that it makes sense that he decided to not have them, but there's a sequence with the Barrow Downs where, obviously the Hobbit finds himself in harm's way, which would obviously have been a really great thing. The character of Tom Bombadil was not included in the films. It kind of makes sense. I mean, look, when the Hobbits end up with Tom Bombadil, they're there for a long time, months and months pass, where they're in safety. And you simply can't do that in a film. You need things to keep moving. Otherwise, as an audience member, you just go, well, they're fine. They're just, picking daisies and eating cheese and drinking beer. Why are we watching this? It's nonsense. You need them to be in character. So I understood why Tom Bombadil was not included, but he is a fascinating character. The fact that he's like, look, wars come and go, and I'm here, and the forest is safe, and I'm cool. He's a little bit like Treebeard in that regard. I think if someone had asked me who played Tom Bombadil if he was included, and I was like, Mark Rylance would be an amazing Tom Bombadil. He has that kind of like whimsy to him, slightly absent-minded type vibe. So that, and then obviously we've talked about it ad nauseum, but like the Scouring of the Shire would be legitimately epic. You've got Merry and Pippin coming back, having learned what it means to be in a war and organize things, and they start to organize things, and Frodo and Sam pick up the speed with them, and they rouse Saruman and his bad guys out of the Shire and clean it up, and unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but the way that they dealt with Saruman in the film was completely different, so it's difficult to see that. You do see Merry, Pippin, Frodo and Sam kind of coming back into the Shire in their warrior regalia, so it's a little nod towards it, but of course that would have been a great thing to see.
Great question. Thank you.
Hi, you can pull the mic down if it's too high.
Okay, gotcha. Oh yeah, so my question is, I'm sure that you and the other Hobbit actors can attest to, Denver is a pretty crazy high energy city. I mean, you've seen it at the convention. I was wondering, do you have any crazy or memorable, or just one anecdote about being in Denver in general?
Well, I mean, it's weird when you come to these places when you're working because you don't tend to see them as much as you would like. We did go for dinner the first night. I mean, the guys are okay with it, but I was pretty adamant that we should go for dinner every Friday night because we're going to be working all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Elijah leaves tonight, Billy and Sean leave tomorrow morning, so you don't get that many opportunities to go for dinner. Of course, we're tired, we've been traveling, but it's important. So we've had some great dinners thus far. We went to a place called Three Saints Revival on Friday night, and we basically just said to this waitress who came over called Maddie, we were like, "Can you just bring us stuff? Just bring us food. We'll eat it. Just bring us whatever's good out of the kitchen." So she started bringing stuff, and it became kind of a bit of a hobbity feast as we drank wine and got a little inebriated, and then Sean really wanted to ride a scooter back. So he couldn't find a free scooter, and he was not happy that we had to walk for half an hour. So I was taking pictures of us all on the way back, and those are the precious moments. We all live in California, we all live in LA, and we make big plans to see each other, but people have families and people have responsibilities, and it doesn't work out as much as we want. So I just kind of said, look, every Friday night that we land, we have to go for dinner. So after this, we go to Chicago next weekend, then we go to Boston and Toronto, and we figured out dinner at all of these places. So yeah, those are the other stories.
To the Ninja Ninja Turtles. Which turtle is each of you?
Yeah, I'm not as well versed on the Ninja Turtles as like Sean obviously played a Ninja Turtle.
He did.
You guys can tell me. I mean, who's the organizing Ninja Turtle?
Well, you got the leader, right? Leonardo's the leader.
So that would probably be Elijah, just because he is the de facto leader.
Okay.
Elijah, you know, we all release tension on the rope here and there, but I think all in all, if Elijah says no, we're going there for dinner, we're like, oh, okay, bring back. and then we do it anyway. You know? So okay, so that's Elijah.
That's yeah, Donatello is the geeky one.
Okay, go on. Who's another?
We've got Raphael who's the attitudinal one.
And then,
Here we have Michelangelo, the party animal.
so I'm probably Michelangelo.
Okay.
and then Billy and Sean would be, what do you got? You got
Yeah, Donatello and Donatello and Raphael.
Yeah.
So Donatello is the geeky brain one, and then Raphael is the more attitudinal, I'll kick you kind of guy.
So probably Sean Astin's the Al Kicky guy.
Okay.
Although Billy's not in any way a nerd. But yeah.
That's maybe.
That makes more
All
sense.
right. I was just curious about that. Hello.
Hello, Don. Thanks for scheduling. My question is, what was your most favorite and your least favorite part in filming Lord of the Rings?
Well, most favorite is the friends you make, because I think that's the thing that we go through in life. That's the things that you take ultimately, right? I mean, the memories that you make, and it's usually with other humans, you know. So certainly on Rings, it's the friendships that you make, because they're tied up in your memories. So these relationships moving forward with the Fellowship and with certain crew members, and you know, obviously with Pete and his family and stuff like that. And then what was it? The worst? The hardest thing? The toughest thing?
The worst part.
The worst part. I had a really great time on those movies. The worst part. I don't know. We had 1 day off a week, you know. So you used to like 2 days off a week normally.
Right.
So 1 day off a week, we worked Saturday, and then we would usually go out for dinner Saturday night, and then you wake up Sunday, and you have to do the laundry, and you have to pull your week's work and see what you've got, and then you have to tidy your house because it's an absolute mess because you've just been sleeping in it and letting it go to ruin all week. And just the free time was so short, you know, and then boom, you get picked up at 5:15 on a Monday morning. So I think probably just the lack of any free time was the most challenging. But I love that job. It was super.
Great question.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for coming out to see us, appreciate it. I wanted to go back to a little bit of the Lost piece. When you were in Lord of the Rings, it became this huge global phenomenon, and then you almost immediately went to Lost, which was a phenomenon on its own. Was that kind of jarring to go from phenomenon to phenomenon, or was it kind of like, this is just life now for me to going forward, I'm just part of these huge projects?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how connected I am to that stuff, or how much value there is for me to be personally connected to that stuff when things get big, when things get gnarly, you know, like, of course, I was aware of it. I was aware that, like, going out and something got, like, a little bit more complicated than normal. I was not able to go to, like, bars or restaurants or, you know, wherever in the same way. You know, if you're going to, like, airports or hotels, you're going to expect to, like, be in those situations a little bit, but then it kind of got a bit weird, people outside my house and stuff like that. So, yeah, but I think for me personally, it's just important to not be connected to that. That's kind of an ego piece, you know. Oh, now I'm famous. Oh, now I'm not as famous. Who gives a shit? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm an actor. That's just what I do. It's like a byproduct, you know. It's like you drive a car, exhaust comes out the back. So it's like I'm an actor, and then the fumes of that is sometimes you're famous, sometimes you're less famous, sometimes you're more. So I don't, you know, it is normal for me, you know. I've been quote unquote experiencing some level of fame since I was 18, you know. So, you know, way more than half of my life, I've been in a place of people being like, hey, and I go, oh, hey, how's it going? And then I just keep going, you know. So I think it's weirder for my family. I think it was weirder for my mom and dad. They're used to it now. I think it was weirder for my brother. He's a little bit more used to it now. Sometimes my, you know, extraneous friends or family that are not used to it at all, they get freaked out by it, but I don't. I mean, you know, I can immediately see in a room if someone's going to come over to me. I can tell in a restaurant if someone's biding their time or if someone's going to take a picture. You know, I have family and friends be like, oh, someone over there, oh, they recognize you. They go, yeah, I saw that like 25 minutes ago. It's not a big deal, you know. So, yeah, no, it's not weird. It's just life, you know. And I think it's important to not be connected to that. And some of the actors that I've known over the years that do seem a little fixated on like, I gotta do this, I gotta get big again, I gotta have this moment again, or I'm not quite as big as I used to be. You're in trouble at that point. Do you know what I mean? Concentrate on your craft. If it catches fire, great. If it doesn't, but you did the same job and you have the same integrity, then you're going to be okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I think having a balance is one of the reasons why we love this, because you are still so very approachable in spite of all the great things you create. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Hello, friend.
Hi there. Hey, so I'm a student studying biochemistry with a focus on environmentalism and conservation, and I want to say I really appreciate how you use your platform to promote environmentalism and conservation and your love for animals. And I also wanted to just ask you, during the pandemic, I know that you did DIS live every week, and it was a huge source of comfort for me in my life, and I really appreciated how you spread love and kindness and mental health awareness during that time. But I wanted to ask, did DIS at all influence you getting started in podcasting with Billy and starting the friendship of you at all?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think I've been talking to Billy about doing a podcast for a couple of years, and you know, Billy just was not as well versed on podcasts as I was, so it took a while for him to get there. But I started to kind of say to him, you know, it's just the two of us just sat around for an hour, just having a conversation. It doesn't really matter where it goes, and we'll have fun with it, and it'll be great. And very quickly, you know, Billy picked it up. The DIS thing, which was the Dom Isolation show, which I did during COVID, was really fun for me. But you know, honestly, it was helpful for me too. You know, I live on my own. I have a bunch of animals around me. I have some responsibilities with those animals. But you know, as I'm sure we all experienced during COVID, those days got long. You know, you weren't working. You were up at 5 in the morning sometimes. And you're like, man, I'm not tired. I'm not going to be tired until 10 o'clock at night. I need to fill my day with a little bit of structure. So, you know, the structure of meditation and breakfast and taking tea or coffee was huge. And then by the time it got to like 10 or 11, I was like, okay, what do I do now? What are my targets? What are my goals? And I just kind of thought, well, if I can talk about what's been helping me, that whatever, I watched this film and it was great, or I got into Lego, or I listened to this album and it was really fun, it will be me reaching out into this great void and seeing if anyone else is like, you know, having the same experience that I'm having. So it was a great source of comfort for me too. I think maybe it proved a little kind of proof of concept thing to the podcast guys to be able to say, oh well, if we add Billy into that DIS thing, which I did a couple of times, then we can see what the podcast is, you know. So yeah, it was a really fun thing. Hopefully everyone out there listens to the Friendship Onion. I say it's a shameless plug here, and I say it every so often, but like, you know, this is a strange industry in which it needs to be constantly growing, and as soon as you plateau, then the company that you work with is like, well, you were doing this, and now you're kind of doing this, and we get to a point where we just can't do it anymore. So the beast has to be fed, which is a cynical thing, but we have to consistently get more and more subscribers. So if you guys love the podcast and you want us to keep doing it, the way for us to keep doing it is to just consistently get more and more subscribers. So you guys will do that for us. Yes, exactly. So thank you for that. Great question.
What's it called? The last plug?
It's called The Friendship Onion, which is the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. Even if you don't listen to the podcast, just go subscribe to it.
So unfortunately, I've been given a cue that we've run out of time. I'm so sorry. Unless you want to try to speed round it.
Yeah, speed round it.
Speed round. How many more people do we have? Like I see 1, 2, 3, 4. How many do we have over there? 5 over there?
Come on, let's speed
That's
round
like 9 people. You got it?
Let's do it. Come on, I'll try it. I'll answer it as fast as I can.
All right. We're on this side? We're on this side. Go.
Any possibility of a drive shaft reunion tour?
Okay, the PlayStation 2 back Lord of the Rings 2 Towers and Return of the King had Easter eggs where you guys talk shit about each other, who's a better gamer, right? I need to know who the better gamer is.
Well, Elijah now has 2 very young children, you know, like a little baby and like a toddler, so Elijah doesn't play games that much anymore, so I think his gaming skills have fallen off. Billy really puts in a great effort. He's not a natural gamer. I'm going to say out of the 3 of us, I'm probably the best gamer.
You actually have a gaming chair, so yes.
I do have a gaming chair.
Hello.
Hi, so quick question. So you know how there's all the memes about he actually broke his foot during that kick and everything?
Right.
Is there any fun facts or behind the scenes things that you wish would have that level of fame?
I think, the grog that Mary didn't drink when we were like passed out in the hurricane, like feeding us grog and stuff, that I believe was prune juice and some sort of fizzy soda that was made to go flat. So it was like heavily sugared but so thick at the same time. That's not going to happen really yet. So yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
Did you have any interactions with any of the animators or special effects artists during the creation of Lord of the Rings?
Obviously we were in and out wet to digital, and they would show us these incredible programs like Massive, which was developed by Weta, crowd stuff. So we saw that in its infancy, and then obviously watched it with Hal and Steve, and watched it with the Rohirrim and stuff like that. And yeah, when we go to New Zealand, usually we'll go in and out of Weta physical and Weta digital once or twice, and they'll generally show us like, ooh, check it out, this is what we're doing now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Considering your Friendship Onion podcast, have you, Elijah, Sean, and Billy ever considered doing a D&D campaign and doing it live?
Yeah, we did pitch that to those guys. Obviously, they don't have us, when getting the four of us together is difficult outside of these conventions and stuff. Initially, years ago, I had said to Elijah, do you want to do a podcast together? And Elijah was like, I'm not sure if I'm kind of going to jump into the podcast world. And then from there, obviously, it became something that Billy was into. The only reason why I asked Elijah first was because Elijah listened to podcasts, Billy really didn't, and then, Billy started doing it. But I think we'll always have Elijah and Sean coming back with an open invitation. Maybe we'll do some sort of Christmassy thing. The other thing is, like, lots of times people online are like, why have you not invited Orlando? Why have you not invited Leopold? We've invited all of them. They all have an open invitation. So it's not as if we've selected and said we don't want these people. Everyone has been invited. Lots of people are busy. Lots of people don't want to do it. That's fine. It's up to them. But they've all been invited.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi Dom, I'm Sam. What was your take on the meaning of the ending of Lost?
This was supposed to be quick.
That's what I did. I stopped watching Lost halfway through season 2, so I didn't see it. Long question. You got to ask JJ or David Lindelof. I didn't write it.
He was there at the time.
Yeah, I didn't write it. That's like asking Huckleberry Finn, what does Mark Twain's work mean? Like, he's a fictional character. Last one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah? There's no one there?
Yeah, we got.
Oh, there is
someone.
someone.
Yeah, we got someone.
So, I was wondering what your favorite band is, and do you play any instruments?
Oh, I have a lot of favorite bands. I play a little guitar and a little piano, not very well. Billy's a much better piano player. Guitar player than me. My favorite band is probably the Beatles. I have 2 Beatles tattoos. But I'm a big fan of the Stone Roses. Currently, I'm a big fan of the 1975. I think they're fantastic. I like DJ Shadow. I like the Wu-Tang Clan. I like the band out of LA called Coast Contra, who are excellent. Those are the bands that I like. Check out the 1975. I really like them.
Hi, I'm wearing your purple
Nice
Friendship
t-shirt.
Onion t-shirt.
Merch.
Merch. And I have 2 questions,
Oh.
quick questions. What's it gonna take to get Brad Dourif on the Friendship Onion
He's
to
been
do
invited.
a Seed of Chucky reunion? And will you take Billy on a Wild Things tour?
Okay, well, Brad Dourif has been invited. We'd love to have him. The last time I saw him was in Telford. He said he'd come on. Obviously, we have to work out his schedule. We'll see the next time we're all in California together. Excuse me. Billy was on an episode of Wild Things. I don't know if you know that, but Billy came with me to New Zealand. We went to the Shire.
I did
looking
not.
for a Weta in a cave. Unfortunately, bit Billy on the thingy. He did not enjoy that part of the show. But I'm currently developing another nature show, which is probably about 18 months away from getting done. But guaranteed, if I do that nature show, Billy will again be like, he's always invited.
Everyone like, subscribe to the Friendship Onion on YouTube.
Yes, there we go. Subscribe to the French Onion on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for coming out.